Christmas is the most magical time of the year. The one day when you can eat chocolate, nuts and sprouts and watch television. Apart from all the other days you can do that.
Whether you're a Christian or a Jew, a Muslim or a Hindu, a Jedi or a Womble, Christmas is everywhere.
On television, in the high street, even in normally sacred places like churches.
Christmas is such a big deal that even Richard Dawkins probably does it. And he thinks God's a twat who isn't even there.
But what is Christmas anyway? Do we still need it in 2016?
I'm going on a journey right up Christmas to discover whether the true meaning of Christmas has any meaning today, or whether that meaning snapped off somewhere along the way, leaving it meaningless, whatever that means.
I'll be talking to experts about every single Christmas that's ever happened, as well as finding out where Christmas traditions and giant tubes of Jaffa cakes come from.
How do they make chickens into turkeys?
Turkey and chicken are two separate birds.
You're joking me?
No.
So join me, Philomena Cunk, as I step into Christmas and back out again.
Christmas isn't just tinsel and a long Doctor Who. It's a festival with traditions stretching back across hundreds of years and almost as many Christmases.
It's hard to imagine now, but when Christmas first began, Christ wasn't even in it. Psycho Danny Dyer hasn't always been in EastEnders, even though he feels like part of the furniture, especially when he's trying to act.
Centuries before Jesus arrived, late December was already a time of celebration for the pagans, who existed so long ago there aren't any YouTubes of them. So we've had to make do with this picture. To find out what the pagans were, I spoke to an expert.
Were there pagans before there were humans?
No, you've got to be a human to do anything. Pagans are just people who lived in Europe before Christianity arrived.
How difficult was it for the pagans to get about on all fours?
They didn't travel on all fours, they travelled upright like we do.
The pagans worshipped nature, just like Chris Packham. And their calendar revolved around two big annual events, also like Chris Packham. One of these events took place in late December and was known as the winter solstices.
What was the winter solstice?
It's the winter solstice.
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 You got it. It's that magical time, midwinter and midsummer, when the sun seems to stand still. To the eye, it appears to stop moving along the horizon.
Well, you're not meant to look at it, are you? Because it hurts your eyes.
You can look at it when it rises and you can look at it when it sets. Then you can.
No, you can't. It makes you go blind.
You can. Believe, trust me, you
can't.
can.
That's probably why you've got glasses.
As well as blinding themselves, the pagans celebrated the solstice by cutting down holly and ivy and dragging it into their homes, along with a giant Yule log which they'd set fire to. It sounds rubbish, but with no app store to speak of, killing trees and plants was as good as entertainment got, even at Christmas. Of course, for most people, it wasn't really Christmas until the birth of Jesus Christ, an icon who was almost as revered back then as Beyoncé is today. Jesus' mum was this woman, the Virgin Mary, who one night got visited by an angel and told she'd been gotten pregnant by a Holy Ghost. Of course, actual ghost jizz ectoplasm, which only contains ghost sperm. But Jesus wasn't born a phantom, leading experts to believe Mary wasn't impregnated by a real ghost, but by a man in a sheet, like in Scooby-Doo. Mary's husband Joseph didn't mind his son being God's rather than his, because he knew God would probably buy Jesus loads of toys and have him on weekends, which would take the pressure off. As the birth neared, Mary and Joseph travelled to O little town of Bethlehem, only to discover the inn they'd booked had no rooms in it, so instead they were put up in a stable.
Today that'd lead to one red star on TripAdvisor. Back then, it led to one big star in the sky, which God put there, probably so they could see the baby coming out.
Mary had to give birth here on the floor, like a crack addict, and then lay him in a manger. Manger is another word for trough, and it's where we get the name for modern sandwich chain, Ready to Trough.
The baby Jesus wasn't an ordinary baby. He was born with a big yellow circle round his head, which must have been hell for Mary to push out, especially when you think nothing had ever been in or out of her down below before. If only he had been born a ghost after all. Then he could have just floated out, clanking chains and going woo.
Why do you think it's important that Jesus was born? Would it have been more interesting if he'd have been built like R2-D2?
It would have been more interesting, but the important thing is that he can identify with us, and he was a real human being.
It makes him more sort of relatable.
Yes, very much so.
But then if he's meant to be like an ordinary bloke and he wanted to come across as an ordinary bloke, how come he had all like angels and kings at his stable on his birthday?
Well, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? Although, of course, I would want to say that angels are around all the time. You don't necessarily see them there and then, but sometimes you catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of your eye, or maybe you smell a nice fragrance.
Vanilla?
Maybe.
How many three wise men were there?
Who knows?
Oh.
And I think only one of the Gospels refers to there being 3. But it's just 3 is a good number, isn't
Yeah.
it? It looks good.
So, but there could have actually been 15 three wise men.
Quite possibly, yes.
It's humbling to think that Jesus started out with nothing, born not in a palace, but in a stable, just the ordinary son of an ordinary woman and an ordinary man, and God Almighty. Incredibly, the day he was born was only the beginning of Jesus' life. As a young man, he kept a low profile in the wood industry, but when he was about 30, his career took off. He went on to appear in a number of thrilling and controversial paintings, windows and films. Today, Christ lives in the hearts of millions of believers, but still spends Sundays here in his dad's house. So let's go and see if he's in.
No one was in, as usual, probably because the church Wi-Fi isn't as good as Starbucks, but standing in this old creaky building gives you a real sense of history. Thanks to Jesus' popularity, Christmas was celebrated for hundreds of years. Celebrated by people who were buried long ago, but are still alive in the form of drawings of themselves, some dating back as far as the Middle Ages.
In the Middle Ages, did they know it was the Middle Ages, or did they just think, this is now? You know, how did they know that they were halfway through time?
They thought this is now, and they thought they're incredibly advanced. This is the greatest moment that society would reach to.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it, to get a Tudor back that we could resuscitate,
yes,
cryogenically or something.
Yes.
And then show him what had happened since he'd died. It would blow his mind, wouldn't it?
It would. The internet.
The internet. Google.
Cars. Aeroplanes.
Fitbit watches.
Fitbits.
One thing our time traveller would recognise is the tradition of getting drunk and acting up at Christmas, which back then was known as wassailing.
So what was wassailing? Is that like a sort of bit like bants now?
What's bants?
Bants, it's like when someone's acting like a prick.
Oh, really? What it is basically a group of people, usually a group of men, go around from house to house with a big bowl of drink, and they knock on your door and they sing songs, and the idea is that you're going to swap a drink from their bowl for a gift.
So it was a bit like trick-or-treating then, was it?
It was very like trick-or-treating.
I mean, what sort of costumes would they do? Because they were already sort of covered in shit, weren't they, with like slugs on them and mud and everything.
They didn't usually wear costumes, but it was also a way of creating community cohesion, going from house to house. It was something that was supposed to be fun as well. So that's really the very early beginnings of going from house to house singing carols.
Because the history lady said that, we've now cut to this. Some boys singing carols in a church. On earth.
Okay, I get it, yeah, thanks. How do you get the music into the words? Like, how do you attach the music to the words in your throat?
Well, you tend to attach the words to the music instead,
You attach the words to the music as it's coming up through your throat. So does it feel like, where does the music come from? Does it feel like it's coming from your stomach, like you're going to be sick, but it's like nice sick?
Kind of, I guess.
Not all Christmas songs are quite so religious. In the 1970s, groups like Slade reinvented the carol, appearing on our TV screens, showcasing a new form of singing called shouting. This music was loud, probably to keep Jimmy Savile away. For years, having a Christmas #1 was the ultimate music industry badge of honour, right up there with choking to death on your own sick. More recently, songs released from glossy TV shows like X Factor took over the Christmas #1 slot. What's clever is that these songs have got absolutely no Christmas in them whatsoever, probably because if Simon Cowell touches anything to do with Christ, he catches fire. Meanwhile, back in the past, by the time the Tudor era arrived and the music all sounded like what you're hearing now, Christmas had become an excuse for gastronomic indulgence.
Tudor feasts were huge and often included roast goose or swan or peacock, basically a big bird roasted whole. That might sound traumatic, but in the days before television, they didn't know big birds have a person inside.
To find out more about Tudor eating habits, I spoke to food expert Jay Rayner.
So what sort of things did Tudor people eat at Christmas? They ate things like peacock, didn't they? What goes with peacock? What kind of gravy?
There is evidence that they ate, very exotic things, but only that would have been the very, very richest people.
I suppose the best thing about them as well is that tail, and that's not going to taste of anything, is it?
No, that's purely for display. Yeah.
A Tudor Christmas, then, they'd have peacock, like you say.
No, I think like you said.
The royals had peacock.
I don't know how much peacock was eaten in Tudor days, I'll be honest.
How did that affect their bowels, what comes out of their back holes?
I don't know. I suppose if they were eating too much, it would have caused certain bowel issues.
I suppose meat, lots of meats.
Lots of meat
compacted together.
Can compact, yes.
And make sort of big, hard stools.
It would have been uncomfortable, I imagine, but I'm only guessing.
Let's see, that would have been the first bit that I'd gone to if I was a food expert. Just when our ancestors were getting well into Christmas indulgence, history shat out someone who was allergic to fun. Oliver Cromwell, King of the Puritans.
Cromwell was a member of Parliament who wouldn't wear smart clothes and never smiled, a bit like Jeremy Corbyn. And just like Corbyn, he wanted to change the country. But instead of sitting down on a train, he got off his arse and did something about it by starting a civil war.
Civil war is like a real war, but not abroad, so it's cheaper. And that meant ordinary people could start one, not just kings. The English Civil War divided the country down the middle, like a sort of tooled-up Brexit.
Cromwell won and cut the king's head off, which meant he couldn't be king anymore, even if everyone changed their minds. Now the British public had taken back control. No longer did they have to do whatever the king said. Instead, they were free to do whatever Cromwell said. It turned out Cromwell hated all the things kings like feasting and burping and music and throwing chicken legs over his shoulder and laughing. And that was just the tip of the turnip, because in 1647, Cromwell banned Christmas. According to the Puritans, Christians shouldn't celebrate Christmas because it's not in the Bible. Instead, they should be inside a church, which isn't in the Bible, reading the Bible, which isn't in the Bible. The ban on Christmas continued until after Cromwell's death, but by 1660, we'd found a new king up a tree. The new king even had a head, although it looked a bit like it belonged to Boise of Only Fools and Horses. And now the monarch was back and the Puritans had buggered off, Christmas was free to become more festive and less religious. For years, Jesus H. Christmas was the #1 face of the festive period, very much the Captain Birdseye of Christmas Day. But his rule over his mighty tinsel kingdom was to be threatened by this man, Father Christmas, street name Santa Claus. Like Jesus, Father Christmas is used as a bribe to make children behave, although in his case the prize isn't eternal salvation, but presents. No wonder the moment Santa came on the scene, it was game over for Jesus, who had to accept a lower-ranking job, and the global icon industry.
So where did Santa come from? If you think in the North Pole, that's because your parents lied to you. He actually stepped out of the pages of history. Where did Father Christmas come from?
Well, Father Christmas comes from St. Nicholas, and he is a 4th century Greek saint and bishop, and he was very renowned for giving presents to the poor, and particularly he gave presents to these 3 girls. If he hadn't given them the money, they would have had to go off and be prostitutes.
So why was he knocking about with these prostitutes?
I don't think he knew them very well. It's just that they...
Well enough to give them gifts.
Give them money. I think he just wanted to save them from the horrors of... I think because basically...
They all say that, don't they?
They do.
How come shops have Father Christmases, but they don't have Jesuses? Is Jesuses the right term? Is it Jesus, or...
I think we'd say figures of Jesus.
Figures of Jesus.
I think that Father Christmas himself would probably have preferred there to be figures of Jesus, because in fact there is a medieval story. St. Nicholas got in a punch-up about whether or not God or Jesus was greater and was thrown into prison. So he was obviously very exercised about the purity of religion.
It's all coming out, isn't it? You know, because like I didn't know that he used to hang about with prostitutes or get into fights. Now I'm feeling less happy with him coming down my chimney.
Despite being the stuff of nightmares, Santa is the world's most popular home intruder. Probably because, unlike other home intruders, he doesn't leave a turd on your living room carpet, but a pile of gifts.
Santa has a list of good and bad children. The good children will get lots of presents. And so it turns out, well, the bad children. In fact, the only ones who won't get very much are the poor children. That's because Santa judges a child's goodness based largely on parental income.
The sense of magical wonder on a child's face as they open their presents, which allegedly makes Christmas worthwhile, can last for up to 10 seconds.
That's why, for many, Christmas is synonymous with little ones.
Adults lose the ability to see Father Christmas, so if you want to know more about him, you have to ask small adults, which are known as children.
Hello, who are you?
I'm Archie, who are you?
Philomena. Have you ever met Father Christmas?
I have.
Where did you meet him?
I met him next to Westfield.
And what was he doing there? Was he shopping or something?
I'm not quite sure if Father Christmas is rich.
I don't think he is.
How did he get all the presents in, like, lots of times? Like,
I think he just shoplifts.
Okay.
Do you think Father Christmas has ever met Batman?
In my opinion, Batman's not real. In my opinion, Batman's not real. It's just a man called Bruce.
So you don't think they've met?
I think Superman and Father Christmas have met.
Do you think that Father Christmas will still be allowed in the country after Brexit?
Yeah, he'll still be allowed in the country.
Will he?
Yeah, because the police don't know when he's in the air.
Like David Bowie, Santa experimented with many different looks, finally settling on the familiar fat jolly laughing man look in the late 1800s.
The Queen Victorians were batshit for Christmas and popularised many of the traditions we still do for no good reason today. For instance, Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, did what his fellow Germans had been doing for years and had a tree installed in his lounge. Albert's tree would remain the most heavily decorated piece of wood to grace Buckingham Palace until the day Roger Moore was knighted.
The Christmas tree is still the centrepiece of most festive decorations. It's covered in lights, chocolates and baubles, which is what circles are called at Christmas.
There are also these characteristic vines from the most festive plant on earth, tinsel. Tinsel became a decoration because you can't do anything else with it. It's horrible in salads and won't boil down for soup. For years, the best Christmas decoration was the Blue Peter Advent crown, which took a load of coat hangers and tinsel and cleverly transformed them into a load of tinsel round some coat hangers.
Now you'll see how it all fits together.
Today, some people choose to turn the outside of their homes into a giant Advent crown.
A jolly house covered in electric lights may be expensive and use a lot of power, but it's the perfect way to cheer up a world worried about climate change and dwindling resources. Of course, in Queen Victorian times, only the super rich had fancy decorations. Ordinary poor people had to celebrate Christmas by coughing and counting their surviving offspring.
Life in Queen Victorian times was hard. The streets were full of urchins and rippers, and there was so much poverty that people used to go to prison just to get some bread.
But there was one man who cared. The greatest Prime Minister Britain ever had, Sir Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens wanted people to be generous to those in greater need, like the poor, the homeless, or the dead.
So he wrote something called A Christmas Carol, which was something called a book.
As seen in this powerful and evocative adaptation, A Christmas Carol is about Ebenezer Scrooge, a character almost as fully realised as Disney's superior Scrooge McDuck.
Unlike Scrooge McDuck, he's human, and unlike most humans, he hates Christmas. But then, in a terrifying development, he starts getting visited by ghosts, like his house is built on some sort of Indian burial ground. The ghosts take him forward and backwards in time to see different Christmases, like that thing on Facebook that shows you old haircuts and people you don't talk to anymore. One ghost shows him the future, but it's only by a year, so it's still a Victorian future. As it is, he sees a future in which everyone's delighted he's dead. This convinces him that Christmas is actually brilliant, which, to be honest, the ghost could have done by giving him a chocolate orange. Nobody can argue with that.
After the Victorian era, goodwill to all men caught on so much that it was almost 12 whole years before everyone on the planet decided to kill each other in the mud. Although it was scheduled to be over by Christmas, the war with Germany lasted 4 years. Mechanised conflict is the most horrifying legacy of the 20th century, as anyone who's seen Robot Wars will agree. But at Christmas 1914, there was a brief ceasefire. The fighting stopped.
Soldiers got out of their holes and joined together in a place called No Man's Land, showing that even at moments of peace, men will still divide into two sides and try to beat one another.
The Great War claimed over 17 million lives, making it the worst incident of football-related violence of all time. After the First World War, Christmas spirit once again reigned supreme, until the Second World War. We don't know if Christmas happened during Second War too, because there simply aren't any records.
But there's no footage of Hitler or Churchill in Santa hats either, so it's safe to assume it was parked while they twatted each other.
Once Hitler had defeated the Nazis by blowing his own brains out, Christmas returned with a bang, and a second period of food-loving indulgence dawned. The modern Christmas dinner soon became an important cultural cornerstone of both society and gravy adverts.
Mum made the gravy.
Could you talk me through what makes a perfect Christmas dinner?
Once you've got the right people around the table, you need a light starter. If you give people too much to, which is
Not
really...
prawn cocktails.
Well, I don't know. A good prawn cocktail's a lovely thing.
I don't like prawns.
Do you know?
No, they're bottom feeders.
OK, I tend to do platters of charcuterie, salami and ham and maybe some pickles and things for people to pick at.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that? No? OK. And then you come to the main event. So maybe a 3-bird roast or a roast goose, bread sauce gravy.
I don't understand bread sauce.
It's a great way of making a really savoury sauce.
Bread and sauce are two completely different things, aren't they?
Well, they are, but you can grind the bread down and then cook it in milk to make a really good sauce.
It just looks like sort of jizz. Thanks to all this food-based indulgence, scientists now believe that 80% of all burps occur at Christmas, threatening to put a hole in the ozone layer at precisely the moment the sky is full of vulnerable reindeer.
Eating aside, the other popular form of Christmas indulgence is gift buying from shops.
Critics say Christmas is too commercialised and that the Bible has been replaced by the Argos catalogue just because it's got a better selection of hair straighteners.
Recently, Christmas shopping has started to look less like a supermarket sweep Christmas special and more like a civil war with carrier bags. No wonder more people than ever stay indoors shopping on the computer. So is Christmas all just about buying stuff these days?
How much money gets made at Christmas?
Altogether, I'm sure we spend hundreds of millions of pounds at Christmas.
And how big a cut does the church get?
The church doesn't get anything.
They don't get anything?
No, no.
The supermarket near me's got about 30 tills. How many tills does Amazon have? They must have loads.
They don't have any tills.
What?
They have a computer.
One computer?
Yeah. Because no one goes there, do they? They just do
I know,
it.
but I thought they'd still had to ring it through.
No, the computer does all that.
So there's one man at a computer just going?
No, I don't think there's a man. No, it just goes automatically. You do that. You're the till.
Making money is so important at Christmas that shops pull out all the stops to fill the screens with jolly images of buying things. And their adverts have evolved from cheerful animated catalogues full of famous people smiling at you to heartwarming present-day mini-movies about infested trampolines. Adverts aren't the only programmes on at Christmas. There are also programmes on at Christmas. For decades, Christmas television has been an enchanting place, a magical land where people danced and sang in a doomed attempt to convey the sheer magic of Christmas. A time in which newsreaders cavorted with comedians and real-life snowmen were gathered from the wild and encouraged to sing their haunting traditional songs in the studio.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
But perhaps the most reassuring Christmas programme is EastEnders, which for years has provided an important public service by depicting worse families having an even shitter time than yours.
You're mad! You're leaving time! What are you doing? What are you doing?
Films are a mainstay at Christmas, and one familiar film is the searing musical The Sound of Music, which is about a woman who sings to hills about hills in the hills.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
It's always on at Christmas, probably because it's got nuns in it, so you think about Jesus. And also Nazis, so you think about The Great Escape, which is probably on Boxing Day. But the most Christmassy film of all time is also the most exciting, Die Hard. People think Die Hard is a gripping and exciting action film just because, as you can see, it is. But it's also a heartwarming Yuletide story full of the magic of Christmas. It's got everything. Singing. A man up a chimney, warming yourself in front of a roaring fire. While the snow flutters down outside. Brotherly love.
Hey, look, I love you. So do a lot of the other guys.
Cranberry sauce. Excessive sherry drinking.
God, that man looks really pissed.
Season's greetings.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Your dad conked out in a chair, wearing a Santa hat in his Christmas jumper. Angels majestically soaring through the air. And of course, Jesus Christ Powell.
Jesus Christ, Powell!
TV's becoming a thing of the olden past, like sundials or ploughs. Because today, everyone has their own little screen, so they can ignore their immediate surroundings on an individual basis, instead of as part of a collective effort. We're often told to feel sorry for those who are alone at Christmas. But these days, that's all of us, and it's brilliant. Best of all, this kind of technology is set to become more immersive than ever.
For instance, this man from the year 2018 is enjoying a virtual Christmas with a family of characters from the Nintendo universe. Meanwhile, this man is experiencing the true meaning of Christmas by giving birth to a virtual baby Jesus in a stable made of polygons.
Today, the true meaning of Christmas is a mystery, wrapped up in sherry and Monopoly and monkey nuts. But at least at this time of togetherness and warmth, we can all agree what the true spirit of Christmas is. Baileys. Merry Christmas and a very new year.
If you like her style, Cunk on Shakespeare is available to buy, download and keep through BBC Store. More comedy follows here on BBC Two. We stand up from the SSE Hydro in Glasgow. Kevin Bridges, A Whole Different Story, next.